Okay, this is crazy. It's been a while since I've done this. God, and I'm starting with such a serious video. Okay. Part of me is like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? And the other part of me is like, bitch, it's been long enough. So a lot has changed since you guys have seen me last. I think my last upload was in March and it's now August. Yeah, it's been a long time since it's been a long time since I've seen you guys. Sorry, didn't mean to fall off the face of the earth. Right now I am in Indonesia. I will be here for possibly 2 months or so. The last time you guys saw me, I was moving out of Dallas. I was in the process of quitting my job, ending my lease, moving out of my apartment, selling almost everything that I own, and hopping on a flight to India for 2 months that completely changed my life. And yeah, I can't talk about India in this video because this video would never end and a lot happened there and I don't even know where to begin to start sharing about it. I went there with this expectation that I was going to be like a travel vlogger and I was going to vlog all of these experiences, and right away I realized that was going to take a lot out of the experience for me and like the personal development and the personal journey and growth and everything that I was planning to do while I was there. And I didn't want to not vlog at first. I was really mad at the universe that it was telling me kind of like, you know, focus on yourself type of thing. But after a couple of weeks it got easier and then I didn't reach for my camera at all, and I was really glad that I wasn't vlogging things because it would have taken away so much about that trip. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of the jungle. There's like roosters and crows and birds that repeat what you say back to you. So if you hear someone screaming, it's probably not a person, it's probably one of the birds. So I went to India. It completely changed my life. Came back home, had some intense, really difficult reverse culture shock. I visited some family and friends back home, met a couple of new friends, and then I spent the summer working at the summer camp in Massachusetts, and I've never loved a job more in my life. And when camp was over, I spent a couple of days in Boston, a couple of days in New York, went home to Houston for like 12 hours, went to Dallas for like 13 hours, came back to Houston for a couple of days, and then within those couple of days while I was in Texas, I figured out where I'd be going next, which is here in Indonesia. But yeah, so if you saw the title of this video, I'm going to just go ahead and get to that. So on this channel, I feel like I've been pretty much myself, but I haven't shared every single part of myself with you, especially the part that I think makes the most difference and is really important for me to share on here. I kind of got trapped into this corner of minimalism, and so that's all I talked about really was minimalism. And then every now and again I'd make a video that was off topic and it got really well received, but I was afraid to put out those videos because those videos are very vulnerable for me to talk about because it involves a lot of my history and my story and like my struggles and things that I wasn't good at and all that stuff. So for the rest of this video, if you're someone who is dealing with suicidal feelings, or you know someone who recently went through this, or if anything about that topic could possibly trigger you, I don't recommend watching the rest of this video. I will see you next time. Yeah, so this is just your very official warning, not to watch anything that might trigger you. Okay, thanks. Please forgive me because I don't know how to talk about this and I don't know how to share it, but it is very important to me. If I want to continue to do YouTube, I want to do something about things that matter to me. And this is something that really matters to me. I'm going to regret not saying a certain thing after I'm filming this video, or not saying something a certain way that might get my point across better, but it is what it is, and I'm just trying to share what I can as best as I can, and to say I did my best, and to say that I tried, and that hopefully it makes a difference for someone else. I'm not making this video for attention or as a cry for help because I'm in a much better place now. The only reason I'm making this video is that I hope and I know that there's probably someone out there who needs to hear it or who will benefit from hearing it. And even if you're not the person who is in a similar situation or was in a similar situation as I was, based on statistics, you know someone who is, or someone who will be, or has been at some point in their life. If you've followed me for a while and watched my more obscure videos, you know that I struggle with depression. I have my entire life. And about 1.5 years ago, I went about halfway through with a suicide attempt. Without saying a bunch of details because they're not necessary, I had like part A of the plan, part B of the plan. I made all my arrangements. What I was going to do was to take something that would make me feel very relaxed, to do something that was going to be very painful, and then I was going to be done with it. I had been really depressed for about 2 months. I had done ayahuasca in March of that year, I think it was 2017, and that made my depression a lot worse. I have to make a separate video about ayahuasca and my experience and everything with that because it definitely relates to this story. But just know that I think it's a very therapeutic medicine, it's very healing, and I would definitely still do it again despite the reaction I had in this past just because I felt like ayahuasca opened me up, and it was kind of like it cut like a slit into my soul, and like all the sadness started like weeping out and seeping out, and it took several months. But for those several months where that seepingness was happening, I was just surrounded by it and suffocated by it, and it took a long time for it to kind of go away and to completely get out of my system. But ayahuasca was that initial kind of cut for all that shit to come out, basically. So anyways, I'm in the middle of this seeping process, I guess you can call it, and the best thing I can refer to it is A Dark Night of the Soul. If you're familiar with Eckhart Tolle or any of his books, which changed my life, I really recommend them. The Power of Now is really good, but the one that really did it for me was A New Earth, and I've listened to a lot of his talks and stuff on YouTube. It's basically this depression that's related to a spiritual awakening, and he calls it the dark night of the soul, where you're just at like your spiritual rock bottom, and it fucking sucks, and like nothing fucking matters. And I've been depressed before, but it was always usually related to a situation or a circumstance or an ex-boyfriend or something like that. But this time it was very, very different. On paper, my life was amazing. I have a brand new car, I had a hamster that I was fucking obsessed with, I had a studio apartment that you've seen in my other videos, and it was cute and it was luxurious for me, and I thought it was amazing. I had amazing friends, I'd come to peace with a lot of my like family issues, and I was close to my siblings in a way that made me feel good. I had a job that paid really well. I was paying off my student loans. Yeah, so I just got to this place where like my life was really good on paper. Everything was very comfortable, everything was very cush. And I woke up every morning feeling absolute like dread, and I was anxious all the time, and I was really depressed. And I couldn't figure out an exact reason why, you know. I had a good job, I had money, I had this, I had that. But I was just so fucking empty. Like my entire life felt like this void, and I had been on antidepressants before. And when I was on antidepressants and my depression was that bad, I just felt like this huge void, and I was trying to take as long as possible to get back on them, and eventually I did go back on them, and I didn't feel as empty, but there was just this huge space that's really hard for me to describe. And life is just, you know, maybe I don't want to slit my throat every 5 seconds, but nothing tastes good. I don't want to do anything, but it's kind of like I'm on autopilot. Like it gives me enough just do the things you're supposed to do to exist as a human, but I don't feel good about it. I still don't really want to do much. When my depression wasn't too bad, I would say like 8 out of 10 or less. Antidepressants were fucking amazing. I was cheerful, I was smiling, I would be skipping around. But when it was like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, it wasn't something that necessarily helped very much, if I can say that. But yeah, I just feel like I had tried my whole life to like achieve this like American dream, or like my, you know, particular version or flavor of it, and I had achieved all that stuff, and I was on track to keep going and keep doing better and like, you know, get another job or go back to school and become a nurse practitioner. But I was just I was so miserable, and I was so like dead inside. And I tried meditating and I tried yoga, and like those things helped a lot sometimes, but it wasn't everything. To backtrack for a second, the reason I was so sad is I was having this huge existential crisis, like repeatedly, like every couple of weeks, every couple of days, maybe even every morning, where I was just like, what is the fucking point of everything around me? Why do I exist? What's the point of existing? Everything around me felt fake. Social media was terrible, and I was like addicted to it and still very in it at the time. And all around me, all I saw was like people suffering and people like trying so hard to achieve something and they weren't receiving it, or like just so many broken dreams and so much pain. Not just people around me, but the earth. We're constantly polluting it. The earth, I think, is going to survive. You know, it'll do what it has to do to keep itself around. We as a species are just terrible to one another. We're ruining our environment. It's not stable. I just feel, I know it sounds cheesy, but like the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like all I did was see all of this suffering, and I didn't know how I was going to do it or what I could do about it or how I was going to change anything. Even if I, you know, became the next Mother Teresa or something like that, there would still be so much suffering and pain and dread in the world. And I felt really guilty. I felt like there's nothing I could do about it. And I just didn't want to be around it. I didn't see the point of trying or like living, or, you know, I wasn't scared of dying. I'm scared of pain, and I'm scared of like not having everything wrapped up when it's time for me to die, or not being able to say goodbye and worrying about people missing me or something if I was gone. But death itself I'm not scared of, which isn't very helpful when you're feeling suicidal. I just feel like I was looking around me and I didn't see anyone who was truly happy or truly awakened or anything like that. And it was just really hard to exist in a world that you don't see the point in. And on top of all of that, I just had uncontrolled sadness. When I was at work between patients, even if I only had like 30 seconds, I would walk into an empty room and I would just sob. I carried witch hazel on me because it helps like take away the redness. And I would wipe my face and I go back to work, and then I take care of the next couple of patients. And then like I got to the point where it was overwhelming and I had to like cry again, so I go into another empty room and I would just sob. Sorry, I'm smiling. It's a thing I do when I'm nervous. And yeah, I would just see kids with shitty parents. In America, I'm sure you know, like we have a very broken system in terms of like taking care of poverty, taking care of our veterans, taking care of people with mental health issues. All around me, all I saw was all these broken systems and all these issues and all these problems, and it was very overwhelming. And not only did they affect me, but it affected everybody, and I was feeling for everybody, and it just made me really, really sad. There's this quote by Janell in Avatar, which is a show that I love if you don't know. And he says something along the lines of, if you search for the darkness, that's all you will ever see, but if you look for the light, you will often find it. All I could see was darkness, and it was trying really, really hard to see the light. The amount of light that I saw didn't compensate or make a difference or balance out all the darkness that I saw. And I know a lot of that now is like a lot of perspective issues. So yeah, I was going through this really dark depression period. I got to the point where I couldn't deal with it anymore. I didn't want to deal with the sadness. I didn't want to exist. Not even to that, I didn't want to exist anymore. It was painful to exist. Like I was mad every time my heart kept beating. I was upset for every breath that I took. I was angry every time I woke up in the morning. I was sleeping a lot. If I was awake and I wasn't distracted, I was just miserable. And so I think it was like mid-April or end of April 2017 when I finally decided to go through with this plan. I told myself I was going to feel better when I got to see my best friend. My best friend went to study abroad in Sweden for 6 months, and he was going to come back in the middle of the 6 months for about a week to hang out and then go back and finish the rest of his study abroad. And I told myself, you know, oh, I'm going to feel so much better when I get to see my best friend. We're going to have a night out. We're going to have a lot of fun. And he came back and we had like a great day out and we had like a full night out, and I felt nothing. I didn't want to be there. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about anyone. I didn't care about my best friend. I didn't care about myself. Like we came home that night. I stayed at his apartment for a little bit. Then I went to my apartment and I was like, okay, you know, like he came, and I told myself it was going to be better, and it wasn't better. So that was the night that like I almost did everything. The only reason I didn't was because I told myself is that would just be like terrible timing for me to kill myself, for him at least. He would have to fly back out for my funeral, which I don't know when it was going to be. He would probably blame himself a lot for not being there while I was feeling really depressed, and I didn't want him to fail his semester because of what I wanted to do. And I regretted not like going through with my plan for maybe another 10 weeks. And then I saw him again, I think at the beginning of June. I went on a trip to Sweden and we went to Barcelona, we went to Amsterdam. My depression was still really, really bad. I remember when we were in Amsterdam, every time I saw like a train go by, it physically took effort for me not to jump in front of it. I couldn't stop thinking about suicide. All I wanted to do was like, you know, stand up on the highest surface and like fall backwards and hit my head and do that enough times until it was done. All I could think about all day was like, I wanted to die, I wanted to die. I couldn't do it anymore. Like I was so done. And then literally like overnight, like one day I woke up and it's like I wasn't depressed anymore. It went from being 100% I hate everything to like 15% like, oh, I can deal with this, I can manage. Like I was smiling, I was like going to work, I was like giving people hugs, and I was all right, I'm alive, what can I do? I have this mentality now that I feel like I'm not living on borrowed time, but time is short. What do I really want to do? As long as I'm not, you know, going broke overnight and spending all of my savings overnight. Life is short, life's meant to be lived. So when it was time to renew my lease, I only renewed it for 9 months, a few months before. I didn't know what I was going to do about it afterwards. And I kept thinking, I was like, oh, I should do something crazy. I should do something crazy. You know, I'm alive, like may as well. And for whatever reason, I wanted to go to India. And I kept saying, you know, in my head, like, oh, it'd be cool to go to India, it'd be cool to go to India. I finally addressed that thought and I was like, okay, I have to tell myself like I'm going to start going. And then I told myself I'm going to India, and then I like shat my pants because I was like, oh my god, I'm going to India. And then within a week I like bought my tickets and I told people and I was like, oh shit, I'm going to India by myself for 2 months, you know, it'll be fine. And then right after my depression got better, I had like zero interest in spirituality. I think it's for 2 reasons. One reason is I think when I'm on antidepressants, I feel like I literally have like this glass ceiling in terms of spirituality and feeling connected to like my higher self and like cosmic consciousness or whatever you want to call it. And the other reason is I was just happy to be alive and I wanted to enjoy it as much as possible. I was enjoying eating and hanging out and doing all the activities that I used to do. I just felt like I was very in the world. I was enjoying it. I did that for another couple of months. And then my YouTube took off and I got really into that, and I got caught up in being an influencer and making YouTube videos, and then at one point I realized like YouTube wasn't making me happy anymore, and I took that trip to India, which was always kind of designed as like personal growth, spiritual growth and everything. Please don't make an eat, pray, love joke about my life because I understand it's very similar, but if I hear another one, like I can't take it anymore. And yeah, so I went to India and it was challenging. I didn't want to go somewhere easy like Europe or like Indonesia is really easy to be here right now, at least where I am. I didn't want easy. I wanted something that would like be very challenging and force me to grow and come out of my shell and be lots of different crazy things to me. And I wanted to see things that would not necessarily hurt me, but just be like challenging to see. India definitely was that. I saw a lot of beautiful things too. It's hard to describe why I loved India so much. And I just realized over time, this has happened, like, you know, I said, a year and a half ago. A lot of time and space has gone between that attempt and to where I am now. I was really happy when I knew I was going to quit my job. I was so happy. Like my last like 4 months, I gave them like a huge notice. I was excited to be selling all of my stuff. I was excited to be going on this crazy adventure, as stressful and anxious and worried about it as I was. Like the entire time I felt like I was doing something right and it felt really good. Like I really felt like I was living, even just planning for all of that stuff, and it was so different from being at home. And yeah, so this is just an update video. I want to make more videos where I talk about more serious stuff, more personal stuff. I'm just really nervous because a lot has changed. I don't have my nice cute backdrop with my nice gray couch and like all my favorite picture frames. Right now I'm in this bungalow and it's actually really cute. It's really nice, but it has terrible lighting. It could be a lot better in here. I'll show you. And yeah, and I just want to make videos that are more serious to me and more personal. And I think in sharing my story, I'll find a lot of people who can relate or can find something from it. And it's just hard for me to be vulnerable and like share about all of these things. But yeah, I do miss you guys. I got lots of really kind messages and like worry notes asking if I was alive, things were okay. And I do promise, like the last few months of my life have been absolutely amazing. I'm sorry I didn't film them, but also I'm really glad I didn't film them. Before I end this actually, I forgot to make a point, but my point is just listen to your body. Maybe your depression is trying to teach you something. I definitely think I'm clinically depressed, but I think that percentage of me that's clinically depressed versus like situationally depressed or caught in like a negative thought pattern is much smaller than I ever originally believed. And I have a lot more control over it than I thought. And listening to my depression and figuring out what it's trying to teach me or warn me about or tell me has literally been life-changing. If it wasn't for my depression, I never would have gone on this crazy journey. And also like seeing the beauty in it can also be helpful too. Not that it's all like sunshines and daisies and stuff. My depression causes me to question things almost to a fault. And at least like I'm never at peace with things because that's just like the type of mind that I have. I'm always wondering how I can do something better or what I could do or what I could change about it. But something good that has come out of that is that I go on these crazy adventures and I'm living this crazy life. And I think I'm fairly open-minded and I'm not good in social situations at like conveying compassion, but I think I'm pretty compassionate when it comes to people, at least very understanding. So I understand what it's like to feel like you're, you know, on a spiritual level stuck in like pig shit, not getting able to get up. So yeah, that is what I wanted to say. Depression it's not all bad. You can find something good about it. You can find something about it that has changed you or been good for you. And I think we're all on this crazy journey towards enlightenment. And so, you know, all stairs lead to heaven, or like all rivers lead to God or something like that. But like, you know, wherever you are in life, like all of that can be used to, you know, your enlightenment and becoming enlightened for the benefit of all people. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.